using spoons as well, especially a teaspoon, a tablespoon. Super important. Let's see here. What am I forgetting? Oh, yeah. Very important. Very important. Okay. So basically, I learned how to make this dough from YouTube. There's like a YouTube video that's called something like the easiest bread to make ever. The world's easiest bread. I don't know. I'll find it and I'll post it later. But yeah. So basically, someone made bread seem very easy. And I'm going to start with a cup and a third of warm water, and then yeast is very important. 2 teaspoons of yeast, and then 2 teaspoons of the coconut brown sugar. So that's what I'm going to start with. You just have to give me a second while I heat this in the microwave. So we're going to turn around a little bit. See, I told you I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm doing my best. Okay. Now we're on this side of the kitchen. Okay. I usually only microwave like a little bit, because then I add a little bit more, because as the woman I was in the pool, so my hair is like a mess. The woman on the YouTube video that taught me how to make dough was basically saying you want it to be warm but not hot, right? So you don't want to kill the yeast, you just want to activate the yeast. And so she said you have to think of it like, if you put your finger in it, would you feel safe like bathing a child, like a baby, a newborn in it? It has to feel like warm but not hot. Wow, so many people. Hi, guys. Hi. Thanks for joining us. Lots of questions. Let's see here. Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining, and for everyone who registered to vote and checked your registration and requested mail-in ballots. Good job. Oh, I saw my little canal. I should put that on my apron, I guess. The link is in my bio if you haven't registered to vote, and it's also in my story right now in a swipe up. So whether it's you, or a friend, or a family member, super important to be registered and be ready. Okay, so see, I only heated it for 30 seconds, but it's a little too hot, which is fine because I don't have enough water in it yet. So yeah, see, now that's good. So I have a cup and a third of warm water. All right. I tilt you down so you can sort of see the bowl. All right, there we go. All right, so now get our teaspoons. One, two. Brown sugar. 1, 2. Again, single teaspoon. Right, and then I pour the water over that. And I just whisk. Alright, that should be enough whisking, and then it's time for an egg. Get these open. Crack one egg in there. Oh, boo. course, live, that's what happens. I don't think any shells in there, though. I think I might have saved it. Let me just check around. I think we're okay. All right, I think we're okay, folks. All right, then you just need 1 teaspoon of the salt. Just measure this out. I don't do like the full teaspoon. I do like a little under a teaspoon. Okay, and then throw out this eggshell. I really need an assistant for this when I'm trying to do it live. It's a lot easier when I'm not trying to explain it. Okay, so now we get into the flour of it all, and you need to have a clean, solid surface. I would recommend, if you don't have a butcher's block like this, to just do it on the counter, because it gets kind of sticky and messy, and you don't want to be trying to deal with something that slides or moves. I found that you can't really do it on something that isn't just solid. Or maybe I'm not talented enough to do it on the non-solid things. So I leave it up to you guys. All right, so I have what I call the goo already. And then I'm going to start putting the flour in, okay? So what I do is I start with 2 cups of the flour and half a cup of the cornmeal. I need a wooden spoon coming up soon. Okay, so 2 cups of the regular flour. I just sort of set it in there. I'm going to tilt you down again. Just set it in. Okay, that's 1 cup. 2 cups. Then I'm going to get the regular cornmeal for this one, since this is not the gluten-free pizza. I do half a cup. Half a cup of the cornmeal. And then you just kind of move it around. So I don't get too crazy about the mixing, because you want to sort of start making it want to be doughy. This is where the woman on the video on YouTube does a pretty good job of making this unintimidating. And every time I do this with the dough, it's there's a little bit different amount of flour that I end up needing. I don't know if it depends on I don't know how warm exactly the water is. I have no idea why it's a little bit different, but don't be alarmed when you end up needing little bits of different amounts of flour. Okay, so it starts to kind of stick on itself. Get all the flour. Okay, still very, very gooey. Okay, so I'm going to give it another half a cup of regular flour. Try to start making it feel a little bit more dough-like before I transfer it to the table. Spoon. All right, so now it's going to start to get messy. You're going to start to have to get your hands dirty, okay? So I start to kind of work it in here. Start to kind of push it in on itself. Okay, so now I'm going to put some flour on the table. And because I keep really close track of how much of everything I put, because we count macros here, So far, we have 2.5 cups of flour in here. So I'm going to put half a cup of flour on the table and see if that's enough to start getting it to a doughier state. So we have another half a cup. Just spreading it out. Turn this a little bit this way. Let me put this guy in there. Okay, so I'm going to just put the bowl aside for a second. And I start folding this in on itself and trying to grab the flour that's on the table. Cool. So yeah, so it's starting to get doughy. Okay. And now we're going to start like the actual proper like kneading process. I'm going to keep trying to get this absorbed into there. And again, like the woman on the YouTube video says, she's like, you have to sort of just get in tune with how the dough feels and get a sense of what it needs. No pun intended, because you're eating the bread and it needs things. Anyway, my dad would appreciate that joke. Okay. This can be exhausting. It's a good workout. Get a lot of pressure in there. And again, like this takes longer sometimes, it's quicker other times. I don't really understand why. Some gooier sides are coming out, so I'm going to try to kind of like pick up some of this flour in those gooier spots. It's starting to feel good though. Alright, so what happens is that it starts to get really smooth. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a point where you stop feeling how grainy it is, and it starts to feel like smooth in your hand, and it smells like dough. I feel like you kind of know it's like what I call the dough baby when it smells like dough. Okay, so one dough baby down. You take your bowl that you were using, all the stuff and everything. Don't take anything out. Let the remnants stay in there. And we're going to put this guy here and set him aside for a second. I'm going to clear off the excess of this so that I can sort of guess exactly how much flour I can put in that recipe. So it looks like about 1/4 cup of flour is left here. So basically that means this dough baby has 2 3/4 cup of regular flour and a 1/2 cup of cornmeal in it. Sometimes it's as much as 3 1/2, sometimes it's as much as 4. So like I said, it really just depends on the day. So let me get this guy cleared off, and then I'm going to do the next one very quickly. I might just put some music on so that you guys don't have to listen to me explain it again. Okay, so let's see here. What should we listen to? Hey Alexa, play some yacht rock.
Here's a station for you, Yacht Rock, on Amazon Music.
Can't go wrong with yacht rock. Alright. I'm going to go heat the water again. I'm also going to wash my hands just to be able to touch the phone again without getting it all doughy. I really have great great regard for the people who do this for a living. I don't know how they do it. This situation. Oh, I don't know what I just did. I'm okay though. I think we're still going. Okay. Perfect. So again, warm enough that you could put a baby in the bath, but not so hot that you would burn it. Okay. Alright, so we start again. I always find it's a little trickier in this small bowl, but I do not have two large bowls, so I make do. Okay, 2 teaspoons of yeast, 2 teaspoons of brown sugar, coconut brown sugar, organic, everything's organic. Water. Whisk. Alright. Teaspoon of salt. I always do this not over the bowl because inevitably at some point I spill. And you don't want to spill it in there and then have too much salt, so better to be safe. Let's see if I can break the egg without putting it actually, the shell in the fuse this time. Oh, the yacht rock got really loud there for a second. There we go. Did it this time. Okay. Okay. And then now we start dealing with the flour. Throw out this egg real quick. Okay, so then again, I start with 2 cups, this time of gluten-free all-purpose flour. 1, 2, then I do a 1/2 cup of the gluten-free cornmeal. Okay, so that's where we're gonna start. Like I said, it's a little bit harder in this littler bowl, but somehow we pull it off. I do find too, I mean, we'll see how this one goes, but oftentimes as we go, the gluten-free all-purpose flour tends to get a little bit drier, and the crust is like a little bit crunchier in that. So like, don't be, if you are doing the gluten-free version of this, don't be alarmed by that. That is, for whatever reason, what happens with the gluten-free flour, it seems. So again, I'm sort of like mushing it around, trying to encourage it to be a blob. Like I said, I don't have official terms for any of this. I'm just, I don't know, one day I tried this and it kind of worked, and then we tried different things. kind of kept amending it, but I am not like by any stretch of the imagination an expert here. Okay, so I'm going to do another half cup of the flour, the all-purpose flour. Ava's getting very frustrated because she's outside and it's time for her to eat dinner, so I have to do this quickly. Okay, so we got another half cup there. Okay, so this one's always a little bit trickier because of the small bowl, and I usually transfer it a little sooner. So I'll do the half cup of flour on the table. If you for some reason actually like needed to do 2 pizzas and one was gluten-free and one was not, and you had an allergy, you would have to wipe this all down. I mean, just for the record, we don't have allergies about it, so we're okay being kind of like loosey-goosey about it. But I'm just saying, for the record, you would have to wipe it down to make sure that you didn't have like remnants of the flour with gluten in it. Okay, so this is still super, super gooey, but I'm gonna start dealing with it on the table. Oh, and obviously I washed my hands before we started all this. Okay, so it's starting to take shape a little bit. Okay, so I feel like I can start kind of folding it in. Again, the gluten-free flour is a very different texture. Just is a little bit trickier, I find, than the regular all-purpose flour. You just have to be a little bit more, I don't know, it's like you have to kind of like encourage the shape a little bit more with your hands instead of just like smushing it around. Okay, I feel like this needs a little bit more flour, but maybe not as much as a half cup. So I'm going to do 1/4 of a cup. Actually, we have 1/2 of a cup, so let's see how that goes. 1/8 of a cup. Yeah, see, I don't know if you can see it, but the gluten-free really wants to sort of separate. See how, like, it does this? So it's a little bit more like, I don't know, like if you had like dried out Play-Doh, you're kind of trying to encourage it to not separate. So it's like I still need to knead the bread, the dough, and I still need to kind of like keep activating that yeast, but I'm doing it in a way that's a little less aggressive than how I did it with the last dough. Try to pick up as much flour as I can. Getting very smooth. Yeah, it's starting to smell like a dough baby. So you see how smooth that is now? Alright, so now, again, leave all the stuff in. And I just sort of rest the dough baby in there. Alright, so now I have two dough babies. Alright, and now, this is what makes this an easy trick. So I'm going to turn the oven on to 350 degrees for exactly 3 minutes. I'm going to cover both of these with a dish towel. After 3 minutes of the oven being on, I'm going to turn off the oven and I'm going to put these in. You have to transfer it in pretty quickly so that you're keeping the warmth in there. I hope that makes sense. So 350 degrees for 3 minutes, turn the oven off, and then put these in with dish towel over. Okay, so I'm gonna go get the dish towel first. So we got 1 dish towel, 2 dish towels. All right, and now 350 degrees. I got 2 ovens, so I'm doing 1 in each. Alexa, set a timer for 3 minutes, please. All right, so it's on for 3 minutes. I'm gonna wash my hands. Okay, also just try to use this time to kind of get cleaned up a little bit. So yeah, so I kind of set aside these guys while the 3 minutes is going on. And then I start to figure out what I no longer need. Close up everything. Okay, we're done with this guy. I'm gonna rinse out all of my measuring cups and spoons and things too as soon as I get this in the oven, just so that I can have those prepped to start making the sauce. Put my eggs away. I do find, I know it seems crazy, I feel like I probably talked about this with Eleonora and her, whatever, the chats that we did, but it seems like the fastest way to clean up all the flour sometimes is just use the vacuum. I didn't get a bunch on the floor this time. Sometimes it's messier, so it should be okay. But I've also found that, especially with this wood surface, that the only way to kind of get the gooey bits off is with hot, soapy water. Just water doesn't really seem to work. It seems to need to be hot and soapy. All right, getting close here on the 3 minutes. Alexa, how much time left on the timer? 10 seconds. I knew we were close. Okay. Alexa, stop. Okay, so turning off the oven is very important. Turn off the oven. You do not want to put these in the oven with the oven on. You want to put it in a warm oven. So the ovens are now off. They're covered in their things. Put them in. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to feed Ava because she's yelling at me. Hang on one second. Ava, come on, dinner, come on. You guys doing good? Still going. Okay. All right, so we're feeding Ava too. All right, we got her food. Her medicine. Get everything in. A little dish for her. Ava's very excited. Okay, got this. Ava's had all sorts of medical stuff over the years. She's got some medicines that she has to take. Pop off her wet goods, dry goods. Okay, and we'll go over here to feed her. Alright, so now I gotta wipe everything down, so I'm gonna kind of come over here. This is probably very boring. I mean, you're just gonna watch me do dishes for a while, but I don't feel like I want to stop the feet. So, oh, the other thing is, once you put this in, the warmth, it needs to go for 60 minutes. We've probably gone about 3 minutes since I put it in. Alexa, set a timer for 57 minutes, please. Okay, so it's gonna sit in those warm ovens for 60 minutes, and don't worry, that doesn't mean we're doing nothing. It takes about that time once I wash everything down to like start prepping the sauce and the pepperoni and all of that stuff to be ready. So yeah, so that's what we're gonna do now. Okay, so now I'm gonna clean. I suppose I could just leave all this stuff, but some of it I reuse when I'm making the sauce, and it just ends up being so much to deal with to clean all of it at the end. So it's kind of nice to just sort of do the best you can to keep up with it as you go. And I'm lucky because I've got a dishwasher, so a lot of it I can just sort of rinse off and throw in the dishwasher. I still have a lot of these little measuring cups we're going to use again, so I'll probably just wash these with soap. Just resting on a little dry rack over here. Can you dance? I don't think I can do the dishes and dance at the same time. This is like an aggressive ask.